Okay, testing, testing. We have microphone action now. Are you feeling burnt out, unmotivated, or just stuck in your aesthetic or dermatology MP career or business? You're not alone. Today, I'm breaking down the 4 E's of employee engagement. This is a proven framework to help you re engage with your work and reconnect with your why. We'll be giving advice to you whether you're a student, a practicing clinician looking to start your side hustle, or you're already an entrepreneur in the field and you're looking for ways to create your team. Maybe you're trying to get over that fear of hiring on staff, or you're already looking to enhance the team you already have. We'll go over the 4 E's, which are enablement. This isn't just about having tools, it's about having the right tools for you. Energy, it's not about more hours, it's about managing your energy across 4 domains: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And empowerment, here's where things shift a little bit. Empowerment is about ownership. This is where you move from being the decision makers and not just task takers. It changes everything when you make this shift. And accountability becomes a strength and not a weight. And lastly, probably the most important is encouragement. Don't underestimate a simple thank you, an acknowledgement, or a public shout out. Encouragement fuels all of us. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Dr. Kimberly Madison, and I go live. All my video recordings are live, and I just went live and I didn't have any microphone action. So if you stuck around long enough to see this work, thank you so much. I just switched them from the default mic. And that seemed to make a big difference. But like I said, I've been on this channel over a year. I go live doing these batch content days, and it's my advice for other NP entrepreneurs if you're in the social media space. Today, we're going to do 3 episodes breaking down the 4 E's of employee engagement. Come back, talk about depression amongst NP entrepreneurs, and then round out talking about a nurse-owned business. We'll look at her website, talk about the business structure, and what we can all learn from that. If you're here, make sure you leave some comments. And if you're watching the replay, do the same thing. You can't escape. So I'm just going to do some quality check real quick. Make sure that I can see me and hear me. And there we go. There's one check. All right, perfect. And then I'm checking on the phone to see. So far, it hasn't really shown up. But usually I have all this keyed up for you. So like I said, we have our main topic, which today is going to be the 4 E's of employee engagement. And because I've been doing these live episodes, the whole channel started off first me telling my journey, and then it shifted into me answering your questions. And I know when we have one person has a question, a lot more people have the same question. So a lot of the topics come from conversations that I have with you directly, whether you're a student or an entrepreneur. And oh wow, 680 people. I want to shout out Jade Trevino. She's a Mahogany DERM nurse intern for the year. She typically joins these and provides lots of valuable feedback in the comments. And she just posted her first 3 videos on YouTube. Now, earlier at the top of the week, she had said that was her goal when we were at the Diversity in Dermatology conference. Now, at the time I'm recording this, she's already posted 3 videos. And she's a self-proclaimed introvert. We've talked about introverts here on this channel. And she did it anyway. She felt the fear and did it anyway. So even though I've been coming on live for a year now, what I haven't been doing a good job of is going on my other social platforms and saying, hey, I'm about to go live. And so since she was able to step outside of her fear and do it anyway, it's only right that I do the same thing. So about 20 minutes ago, I did go on my other platforms and announce that I'm going live. So if you saw that, and that's why you're here, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, this is your chance to subscribe so that when I do go live, if I don't make the announcement, you'll be notified immediately. And then you'll be able to participate. And so, that's what we're doing. Oh, there it is. So we're just going to make sure we can hear and see, and then we'll, so like I said, we do these topics, but also it's an ongoing conversation. And so at the end, at the end we do our weekly updates, which have to do with our well-being. I'm of the belief that if you're in the business of taking care of other people, then you have to be in the business of taking care of yourself. And I think the best way to demonstrate that, or to encourage you to do that, is to demonstrate that. So I do give you updates on my own mental well-being. I try to give suggestions, not because I think you care about what I'm doing or how I'm doing, but I hope it encourages you. So when I'm talking about me, maybe you're taking out your phone, you're making that appointment, you're looking up that, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and your loved ones. So that's my little spiel about that. So we always start off with a devotional and a prayer. So let's get to it. I saw this one this week and I couldn't wait to share it with you. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear. The burden I give you is light. Where would you find rest? What would find you rest for your soul look like today? Talk to God about anything that comes to mind. You know what I love about this? Because if you feel, and I've talked to a lot of students, this is April, it's a really being a student is always tough, but certainly this time of the year, they have assignments and projects and exams. They're wrapping up their clinical rotations. They're trying to squeeze in all those hours, still have a full-time life, a full-time job. It's tough. It's a tough time of year. And I was talking to a lot of them who feel like they're the only ones going through that. But I rest assure you that everyone goes through this, everyone. And that's what we're going to do. The next episode is going to be devoted to depression. But what I love about this scripture is that if you feel like what you're going through is so heavy to bear, it is a wonderful sign that you have not given up enough of that burden to God. So that's my little spiel on that. So let's read this little devotional and then we'll jump into our topic. And this is perfect for our students too, right? Making decisions is hard. When we attempt to make the perfect decision, we often find ourselves stuck in indecision. And while we should always prayerfully discern our next steps according to God's word and his ways, sometimes we overcomplicate things. Does that sound familiar? In his first letter to Corinthians, the Apostle Paul was addressing an issue about food regarding what they should or shouldn't eat. So Paul took some of the pressure off Christians by saying, so whether you eat or drink, whatever you do it all to the glory of God. While this passage was originally about food, the principle can be applied to any area of life. Whatever choice you make today, do it to glorify God. In this way, you will keep your conscience clear, whether you're preparing a meal or making a business deal, whether you're playing sports or building houses, whether you're leading a team or raising kids, whether you're crunching numbers or caring for the vulnerable. I think they wrote this for us, you guys. No matter what you do, the core desire should be to love God and love others. And every decision should exemplify that love. So today, ask yourself, does this decision honor God? Is this choice full of integrity? Can others see his character shining through my life? Will my decisions draw people closer to God or pull them away from him? No matter what situation you're in, God has given you his word, his spirit, and his people to help you discern your next right thing. So when making decisions, let's seek to honor God to the best of our ability and then trust him with our choices. As I say every week, you don't have to believe what I believe, but that's what I believe and that's what I share. But I do encourage you to believe in something greater than yourself. Okay, let's get into these 4 E's. And so, like I said, me recording a little bit on social media, that's a shout out to Jade. This particular episode is was inspired by what did I call it? Well, I came across this from a podcast. It's called Big Thinkers. It's a podcast devoted to leadership and development. And they mentioned these. And in that episode, they had Professor, I wrote her name down, Allison Wood-Brooks. She teaches at Harvard. She teaches a class that apparently has a long wait list. And she just wrote a book called Talk, The Science of Conversation, The Art of Being Ourselves, which you can get on Amazon. And right before I went filming earlier today, I also saw Mel Robbins' show, which is Let Them. And she has a podcast. She said it was number 1. I don't remember what category, but it's a number 1 podcast. She has over 3 million followers. And this particular episode where she's talking to Allison is titled The Most Important Career Advice You'll Ever Hear with Harvard Business School's number 1 professor. I've linked those episodes in the description box. And I really encourage you to watch that in addition to next week when I'm going to link to Jasmine Star, because it's the same information, but sometimes when we hear from different people, we receive it differently. And so, like I said, this idea started by listening to the Big Think podcast, which is dedicated to leadership and development, or L&D. And shout out to Dr. Bentel, who was on the Mellon Initiative podcast last year. She started the Bentel Leadership Institute. I think a lot of times in nursing specifically, when we talk about leadership, especially if you started in, I don't think it matters what setting you start your practice. We, like so much of nursing, we tend to isolate everything. When we hear leadership, we think, the CNO, the CEO, the manager, like those like hardcore leader positions. But as providers, as entrepreneurs, we are leaders. Even if you're a nurse at the bedside and you're taking on a charge role, you're a preceptor, you have your team that you're delegating to, you're in a leadership role. Or maybe you're one of our students and you're being groomed to be a leader one day. So I think this is applicable no matter where you are. And okay, so let's talk about it. Enablement. This isn't just about having tools, it's about having the right tools for you. So imagine asking for something as simple as a desk calculator and being told to use what you've got, right? If you're in nursing, you've heard this a million times. That message chips away at your value. And as a leader or business owner, you have to ask yourself, are you truly setting up your team and yourself to win? So I made a video about this, I think yesterday. So many nurses, so as you know, the trend is that, well, maybe you don't know, but there's a lot of people who are coming into nursing from scratch, or they're nurses going into NP school solely to get open their own practice. And a really popular area of that practice is like aesthetics, med spa. I think that's attributed to social media because of like the images that are out there. Fun images, right? Dancing, pink gloves, the music, it looks fun. And if you're working somewhere you're burnt out and you're seeing those images over and over, it's going to be very attractive. All of us desire the thing that we're exposed to. And there are other areas in medicine and in dermatology, right? Medical derm, surgical derm. Shout out to Dr. Teresa Talens. She loves what she does. She primarily does surgery. She was talking about the artistry of it, how the work-life balance, how she's able to have a beautiful schedule and still come home to her husband and her children and run her business, and work on her art and care for her patients. She loves that. And medical derm, there's people who absolutely love medical derm, but you know what? We don't see enough of those videos. And sometimes maybe they're not the fun videos to make. And so we're not exposed to that. We don't know that that is as satisfactory, as fulfilling, and as lucrative as aesthetics. Now, there's nothing wrong with aesthetics. I just encourage you to do the research, know what it is you're agreeing to. Even nursing, we see that across the board. People get into nursing because their mom does it, their cousin does it, they saw it on TV, but they haven't done any of the research. And I only emphasize this because even I questioned, did I know what I was getting into? And so that's the only reason we make these videos here on this platform and on the podcast, just to give you some more insight. And I hope you find it helpful. So we have so many people burnt out, right? They see these videos, and so they're totally focused, right? We're survivors. You know, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've gotten that far in your studies, will have come across this. At the base of that are your basic needs: survival, shelter, food. Anything else beyond that, building relationships, being your authentic self, you can't even think about that until you feel like your safety is established. In practice, when you're burnt out every day, you're spending tons of hours there. Your mind is totally on survival. And so you think burning out is associated with me working for this person. So my exit strategy is building something where I work for myself, because the grass is always greener, right? I had one of my mentees yesterday going on and on about how the grass is greener. And I had to, telling her, no matter what example you give me, even people there have stress, even people there are leaving, even people there are complaining. Like, that's always going to be the case. It's all about mindset, perspective, and how you choose to handle it, your coping mechanisms. Anyway, so what they do is they spend all this time escaping and putting themselves in position to do the work themselves. So they're taking $1,000 of courses. They will tell you, I've paid thousands of dollars for these courses. I'm going back to get my NP degree. I bought this, I paid into that, all these things so they can do the work. But you have to ask yourself, the first question I have when I do these consultation calls with NP entrepreneurs is, what's your goal? And they always start with the patient. They always start talking to me about the patient. And I let them talk. And then I say, but what's your goal? Right? And then we get into freedom and having your time back so you can do the things that you want when you want, with the people who you want to do it with. And so how do we get there? If you know that that's where you're going, then you work your way back. And so if the plan is, I'm not going to be the one in the business, I'm going to be the one working on the business, then you have to ask yourself, do I need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on these certifications, going back and spending another 2 years in clinicals, getting into more debt, spending time away from my family, working a job full-time, going to school full-time, if in just a couple of years I won't even be using any of that? What if I spent all that time taking care of the people who are going to be doing the work for me? What if I spent all my time learning how to communicate the vision, setting them up for success? Because when I set them up for success to do my work, to carry out my vision, it will get done. They will be happy. They will get fulfilled. I love entrepreneurship. I think it's the key to freedom, but not everybody is built for entrepreneurship. Not everybody wants to do it. And in the way the ecosystem work, all of us shouldn't be doing the same thing anyway. And so some people, they might just want a side hustle. Like I've said before, maybe they just want an extra $10,000 or $25,000 a month. That is their goal. So how can they work their way to there? Someone else, their goal might be $5 million a year, right? They have totally different goals and they're both equally fine. You just have to know what your goal is, which means you have to know who you are and your purpose, which means you can't be working all the time, because when you're working all the time, you don't have clarity of mind and you can't even hear your own self talk. So you have to invest in those people. So let's talk about what it looks like to invest in those people. So this is about setting themselves up for success, right? So first of all, I encourage you to spend some time learning how to be a better communicator, and also knowing the difference between a leader and a manager. We had a course in MP school where we had to write a couple papers, I think a whole semester. We talked about the difference. And everyone might have their own opinion, but the way I understand it is leaders are visionaries, right? These might be big idea people, but they might not be little detailed people, right? And then we have our managers, who are typically task oriented, right? There's something that needs to happen every hour on the hour. They're going to be very driven and focused to get that done. What's most important for you as an aspiring or practicing entrepreneur is that you know which one you are. And so if I know I'm not really into the whole daily operations, right? I want to be able to continue to hone this vision and make it bigger. Then I need to, in my business plan, when I'm putting this together, I need to get myself out of the day-to-day task. I need to find someone who can take over that, because sometimes people who are really task oriented, they don't want to be the big visionary person. They might be more detailed oriented, and together we can make some really great work, right? Only if we recognize that and put people in the right positions for their strengths. So for me, when I hear enablement and having the right tools in place, that's what it means. So if you're a student, it means putting yourself in position to hone these skills, asking for these opportunities. Don't limit yourself and say, well, I don't have a license. I don't have clinical experience yet. There's nothing I can do in this position. You can always do something. You bring life experience. You bring perspective. You bring opinions. You bring your generation. The world you live in now is a different world than the world I'm aging in, right? And so that's also important for our parents, who often give advice to their children based on their fears of the past instead of the children's opportunities in the future. If you're a practicing clinician and you're looking to start your side hustle, what I want you to do the next time you go to work, I don't want you to just be an employee anymore. I want you to be a student of that business structure. Look at everything from what is the company? How do they communicate that vision and mission? Who does the communication? How often? Do they get feedback? What's the channels that they get feedback? How does internal communication happen? Is it in person? Is it electronically? Are there teams that work remotely? How do they keep those teams together? What are the employees complaining about? Every employee complains about something. One of my first jobs right out of undergrad was a supervisor at GW. And I had to hire students to work for me in the lab. And immediately I noticed that hierarchy difference, right? And that's just, again, I think the ecosystem. If you are in some kind of top position and there's people who work below you, just like children and parents, there's always going to be this natural, like, you have to be the disciplinary and you have to be the one that sets structure and organization, and the kids, the employees, they're always going to be the ones pushing back, fighting, resistant. Like, that's just always going to be the natural course of things. And so I learned really fast that it's so lonely at the top, right? And being in that position, you have to decide if it's really for you. A lot of times when you're up that top, there's not the same flexibility as the people who do the work, right? Even if you can compare the bedside, for instance, maybe you get might be a little more predictable than maybe someone in leadership. And leaders can tell you all the time, they get calls out at all hours of the night, all through the weekend. And that's part of the job, right? So the higher you are at the top, the more that's going to take place. So if you're that practicing clinician that's looking to get your side hustle and slowly exit out of there, learn what you can from where you are right now. Look up the different software that's being used, see how much it costs, what are the different features of it. Why did the company choose that one? When people are complaining, why are they complaining? How can you better serve your staff when you get your staff knowing this, having this insight. Set up demos with all these different vendors that the company is using, see what it is you do or don't like, right? You can be learning so much in that process from that company. It's kind of like a apprenticeship, without them knowing exactly, and ask different questions from now on. This week we had some leadership changes at where I work, and one of the new leaders popped into our weekly meeting. And I know that normally the meeting would be like, hey, this is who I am. Just wanted to pop in and say hi. And that was going to be it, right? But I always want to know, what was your goal for this meeting, right? And what's your role? Because they call them by an abbreviation. I don't know what that abbreviation means. And what do you do? What's my relationship to you when it comes to chain of command and communication? Am I going through you? And the person who used to serve that role, what's my relationship with them now? Literally, none of those questions were ever answered up in the upfront. And so now I'm asking them now. But I know my peers were just like, hey, nice to meet you. And she's probably like, yeah, if you ever need help, reach out and let me know. But all those questions I brought up are really important questions, because not only as a student of business, but what about that NP who might want to do a vertical promotion at some point? How do you even know what your options are if the people who are in leadership never talk about what they do, right? You don't really know. So anyway, I want you to be a student when you show up for work now, and then see the problems that are there, identify themes, because those, you can find those in any organization, and don't think that you're going to be immune to that when you create your own. This is an opportunity for you to learn how to reduce your chance of having that, or also how to problem solve when you do encounter it right now, before you have everything else to worry about. And then for an entrepreneur, right? If you're not in rooms with other entrepreneurs, you might not know that a big question is when to hire on staff, and getting over the fear of that staff because of trust, right? Sometimes people have been burnt in the past, and so they're really distrustful of that, either in business or personally. And then as nurses, so much of what we do requires us to do it all ourselves. And if you're a mom, you might also relate to that. And so when you become a business owner, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And so what we know is that you're going to be limited. If your business relies on you to do everything, it's going to be limited. And even the value of your business is going to be squashed, because no one else remember, the goal of the business is at some point you won't be working in it, right? You're going to be working on it. You're going to die. It's going to need to be sold or scaled. Something's going to happen to the business. It's never going to stay stagnant. And so when that happens, I forgot what I was saying. If you're here, you can tell me what I was just saying. I see you. I see 3 of you here. Oh, the fear, right. So the fear of hiring someone. And if you've been a nurse, you've been used to doing all the things by yourself. And so that habit you use it everywhere, but you have to let go. At some point, someone's going to want to take over your business. And if your business value relies on you doing all the things, it's not valuable to anyone else. They want to know that this thing can run without you. And side note, before I forget, I recently learned that even when you sell your business, there's like an agreement that the first 2 years, you actually are still around. Right? It's kind of a way of not getting burnt when you sell your business. They want to know that you're willing to stick around for 2 more years. That gives the buyer a little bit more confidence that it's worth what you say it's worth. And they can ask all the questions that they need. And so these are good things to know in advance, even before you start your own business. Like I say, even if you're looking to get married or have children, don't wait until that day to start trying to be the person. I love the analogy of the Super Bowl. You can't wait till game day to start training, right? Okay, the second E is energy. And this, if you're an NP or nurse, you relate to this. It's not about more hours. It's about managing your energy across 4 domains: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Time is infinite. I talk about time all the time. Energy can be renewed and expanded. Are you working in a way that energizes you or drains you? No surprise. I mean, maybe surprise. There's a lot of people in healthcare who are introverts, but we're literally in the business of caring for other people. And so it can be very draining. And many companies are now reporting on how they're investing a lot of time and energy and getting outside experts in to help their team manage their overall well-being so that they can be more productive, right? We see the youngest generation demanding this now, right? They're really focused on that. And so If you're an employer, how can you create space for this and to support your employees? So one thing I do with my executive assistant is I just ask her, how can I give an assignment, and then I ask her, how can I make your life easier? Because if I make her life easier, she can show up and work and do the things that I need much more efficiently, but also hopefully enjoyably. And if she feels like she needs more space, if she needs to take off, if she needs to readjust the days that she needs to work, I had to learn to be flexible with that. It's tough, right? Because if you're an entrepreneur, there's a sense of urgency that something always needs, that this thing needs to happen right now. And I just had to learn to relax, because if I'm also going to trust her to do the work, I need to let her do the work. And if I want to be able to help her grow in the role, then I need to give her the opportunity to grow in that position and not continue to take it over, because then the person's wondering, what am I here for? We can see this even in our own relationships, right? In like personal intimate relationships. Now if you're a student or a clinician and you're still working for someone else, you can ask for this when you're negotiating. So much of the focus on negotiation is always around the money, is on like the salary, which is important, but it's not the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, we can all attest that you're not really thinking about how much you made, you're thinking about how you feel about your contributions, about being recognized. And so this is something you want to create. Maybe it's an admin day, vacation time, PTO. These are other things you can ask how to shift your schedule, and negotiating for your personal and professional needs. One thing before this, on that Mel Robbins podcast that they mentioned, and people give this advice all the time. They'll say, before you go to that negotiation, look at the market and bring that up to your employer. And the professor said, this is not actually a good idea, because then you're saying, hey, I want you to compare me to everyone else. And what she was saying is that everyone's replaceable. And all you're doing when you compare yourself to the market is proving that you're just like everyone else, as opposed to showing how you're different. And so she recommended breaking down all the ways that you're contributing to this business and this company, and using that when you go to the negotiation table. And then employers, just encouraging to be more flexible, right? It's tough. I get it. And sometimes it's that lack of business acumen from our team, right? They don't understand why things are happening the way they need to. And that's an opportunity for us to improve communication and to make it easier for people to complete the task that achieves the mission, even if they don't really care about it. Because at the end of the day, people just want to put food on their table. Empowerment. I love this one. So this is about the MP entrepreneur, putting you in a position where you're able to make decisions as opposed to just completing tasks. It's the same thing as working on it instead of in it. When you do this, everything changes. When you start getting other people on your team who are able to make decisions, alleviate some of that decision fatigue, offer their creativity, it shifts everything. It can offer a lot of relief for both people. They see their value, they're able to grow, they're able to invest in their personal development, because look, everyone has other aspirations, right? And you want to create a space where people can be really honest about that. Sometimes it's not about your clinical experience. That's important, but sometimes it's the least thing that's important, because it's the thing that makes you as common as everyone else who's applying for the job. But what separates you is what you do when no one's watching. And then you have to be confident to communicate what you're doing. This is not the time to be a shy butterfly. So this is about you owning your learning. If you're a student, own how you experience each day, and don't be afraid to ask for what you need, whether you're a student or a practicing clinician. But students oftentimes, because they're focused on what they don't have yet, sometimes they're afraid to speak up. But as I've shared before, as an employer now, I recognize how much power the team has. And even as someone who's done with school, recognizing how much power students have. And so I want you to push past those fears, but recognize them first. You can only push past things once you recognize they're there, and then adapt the tools to help you work through them and to not let them hinder you. Like I said, I mentor quite a bit of students. I talked to quite a few of them in this week alone. And fear was a big topic for them, but also on Jasmine Starr's podcast, she was talking about some fear. So I know when I was really young, fear it crippled me in my relationships, because I was so afraid, not really afraid of being alone, but afraid of rejection, afraid of them leaving, not really being alone, but them leaving. But once I moved past that fear, I was able to be myself fully. That gave my partner, to be fully themselves too. And it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. And now I don't make decisions out of fear. And now I enjoy the relationship so much more. I think my partner enjoys being in a relationship with me that much more. And because the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, I take that across the board. But it only really works in my favor once I understand my purpose and I walk in that purpose. Because as the Bible tells us, we walk by faith, not by fear. But you have to really believe that. That's a real thing you have to believe. And lastly, encouragement. Oh, I love this one. And I want to give shout out to Dr. Danielle McKimey. DMP is a color. She does a beautiful job of recognizing members and shouting them out. That's one reason I always shout out Angie for two reasons. One, to thank her for her participation in helping me do everything, but also to show you, my peers, like, I'm not doing this alone. And I think a lot of times, which I think we're going to get into when we talk about depression next week, is people talk about all the time how they're like self-made and they did it by themselves. But that's never true. If you walk out your house, somebody has helped you. They've written a recommendation letter, they've held a door open, they've given you a job, they've given you water, they've done something. Even if you watch YouTube videos, that's someone's time, their intellectual property, their energy, the money they've spent to make that video. So really, we shouldn't tell people that we did it alone, right? And so we always want to recognize the other people who are helping us get there. And we know when it comes to employees and we look at employee satisfaction surveys, that's a huge thing people always mention is the lack of feeling acknowledged. When I was doing the research for this episode, they mentioned that like even when people work or come and work early, stay late, the average increase in salary is like 1%. Right? But you can get fulfillment in other ways. It's also a reminder of why it's important to have your own business or investments or earn money some other way, get fulfillment from some other places, because you're never going to make more than the people who own the business. That's never going to happen. So there's always going to be a cap of your success when you're building someone else's dream. But that's okay because you can get fulfillment from other places, and that cap could be still really high. So always recognize people, just a simple little thank you, especially in a digital world where we're doing everything so separately. It goes a really long way. And not just giving that feedback, hey, I appreciate what you've done, but asking for feedback. That's a big space I'm in right now, is making sure I get the feedback, because my goal is I want to be one of the top 100 companies that people want to work for. So how do I get there, right? I have to get feedback because we have our own blinders, right? And I know I'm not doing everything. I'm not even going to use. So I know that there's always room for improvement, and I only can find out where those rooms are when other people give me that feedback. So how much simple acknowledgement means? Positive and negative. Negative is an opportunity to get better. We used to do like these peer reviews all the time, and people only highlighted the things that sound great, right? And I know a lot of people struggle with confrontation, and you think by not saying anything that you're really helping someone, but it's not. Even something as simple as having lipstick on my teeth, it doesn't help me for you to not tell me that. At some point I'm going to see that, and maybe I will have talked to 20 different people by the time of that. Why it would have been really helpful if you would have told me that. So whether the feedback's positive or negative, it's always better than silence. And our patients tell us this, right? We know patients who have been waiting for a diagnosis for several years, sometimes to find out a really dire diagnosis, but they still express so much gratitude because knowing something is better than knowing nothing. And then investment, how you invest your time when no one's watching. This is your opportunity for professional development. Build your communication, get a therapist. I've been telling so many of you lately, especially if you're looking to graduate soon, or maybe renegotiate or change your structure of your life, where you live, the job you do. When you're looking at your schedule and you're like, these are the days I want to work. This is when I want to go to church. This is when I want to go visit my family. This is when I'm going to work out. This is when I'm going to meal prep. Put some time in there for your own therapist. When you are in practice and you're giving all the time, if you mentor all the time, if you have a team and you're giving all the time, and you're in your business and you're giving all the time, you're always giving, and you need a place where you can pour into. Having a therapist is one place. I always like to acknowledge that school, our parents, even our partners are not designed to handle everything we need. We're not designed to handle everything someone else needs. And it's good to be able to be in a space and say, you know what, that's a little bit above the tools I have in my toolbox. I'm going to go work and get some of those tools. But in the meantime, you should probably go get that help from somewhere else, right? Maybe your partner is really strong in one area, but there's another area they're not that strong in. They're still working on that. Shout out to one of my pre-PA students. She's about to relocate with her boyfriend, and they were having this exact conversation, right? In one area, and I related this. I relate to this with my partner. Really strong in some areas, right? Where he was already working in the field much faster than me because I was in school forever. And so when it comes to money and investments, especially when we first started talking about it, I didn't realize how unprepared I was to have that conversation, first of all. Um, it could be a little bit intimidating, right? Because he knows a lot. And so he's further ahead of me in that area. But in other areas, maybe he hasn't spent as much time being comfortable talking about those things or uncovering them for himself. So when I ask, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Does that mean we shouldn't be together? Absolutely not, right? It just means when I want to have those kind of conversations, then maybe I don't go to him for that. And I think we need to give more grace to our partners like we do to our friends, right? If we have Melissa's negative Nancy, right? But she's really outgoing. So we love hanging out with Nancy when we want to have someone who's ready to hit the town. But some days we're not in the mood for the negative part. So we just love Nancy anyway, and we spend time with her when we want. But so on those days we go hang out with Jennifer. But when it comes to our partner, we only have one partner in most cases. And so we don't have an alternative. So we make them bear all the responsibility, all the weight. And in my life here on earth, I've come to realize that's not really fair. And then someone I was listening to gave me the freedom to say, hey, maybe I can't support my partner in all the ways that they need. And that's okay too. And that we can see this in our team that we're building, to be honest about where our strengths lie. Because if you're in business, you're so focused on the thing that you're creating that sometimes your team needs more than you can offer them. And so that's where you can invest in outside experts and resources to set them up for success. Because when they're set up for success, your business can thrive, right? And so if you don't have time for a therapist, a lot of our students don't have time. I know that life. You have podcasts, you have YouTube from experts, right? They're lending their time and talent. They've written books, they do in-person events, they've built communities. You can create those communities for yourself. And of course, social media, which is going to be our final note, is this is a space you can create and hold yourself accountable to grow in the areas that you want to, right? If I come on here every week and say, hey, look, I'm going to have a therapist eventually, right? It holds me accountable. I want to come back and say, hey, look, I finally did the thing. So it doesn't have to be public like this, but you can create those spaces for you. And shout out to my mom, who's my accountability partner. We're still waking up every Friday. For me, it's 5:00. For her, it's 6, but I just appreciate her. And each week, we have these opportunities to say, hey, what about not showing up? What about not showing up at this time? But we do it anyway, and I appreciate her for that. And you can create that either where you work. You can ask for that and listen to these resources and bring that forward to whoever you work for and say, this is what we need to thrive so that we can show up more. Or you can bring that to the team you're building and creating. So again, your business can grow. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments. I see you. Ask yourself, how are you implementing these 4 E's in your practice or business? If you're building a team or scaling a clinic or even just trying to stay afloat, this is a framework that can help you go from burnout to breakthrough. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so every time I go live that you'll know and you can join us. So I do these batch content days. If you're here, you can join me, but then I hide them until Sundays at 12:15 Central. And look, I want to challenge you, right? Jade came out with her first video. I did something a little different by going on social media earlier saying, hey, I'm coming live. I want to push you too, right? If you're on the fence about starting your social media platform, I want to encourage you. You can go live. You can hide it. You don't have to be public like me. You can do it private or unlisted, right? And then share it with your friend or family. And if you want, you can share it with me. I'll give you some feedback. Just send me an email and let me know. And by the way, if you really, really, really want to do it and you want some support, some accountability, email me and I'll actually send you my whole ChatGPT prompt that I've put together. And in that prompt, it includes it tells ChatGPT how to create my show notes every week, the social media captions, the email that I email, my email notification list, the subject line, the title, and give me SEO title options, right? I'll share that with you. I want to see you do this, right? And like I told Jade, once she did her first video, that box is checked forever. And a lot of the students I talked to today, they're just holding their breath to get past the next thing. And even as an entrepreneur, you have that experience. And what I told them is what I recognize is there's always a next thing. There's always a next thing. And as an entrepreneur, it's a good reminder that even though you feel that sense of urgency, like you have to do this thing, it has to happen now, it will be there tomorrow, right? And with discernment, you can identify what can wait and what needs to happen. But I always ask myself, tomorrow, right? If my loved one is no longer here, will I regret more that I didn't take that email, that I didn't do that meeting, or that I didn't hold on to them longer, that I didn't stop what I was doing and give them my undivided attention? That's what keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me balanced, right? Which is something we're always fighting for. Just remember not to compare yourself to someone else's journey because they're all so different, right? And there is no real destination, friends. This is the journey. The journey is the destination. Because you're thinking, I just need to get past this exam. I just need to get to graduation. I just need to start this LLC. Once you get there, there is always another thing. There's always another thing, but there's not always more time with our loved ones. And isn't that why we're doing that? Isn't this why we're doing this? So we're at 40 minutes. I'll save my weekly updates for the next episode. And I just thank you for watching. And yeah, we're doing batch day. So if you're here, I'll see you shortly. If not, I'll see you next week. Thank you all for watching.